Welcome everyone, I'm Chef Jake with Harmons Cooking School here at Station Park in Farmington, Utah. Today we're going to be working on a very simple recipe, utilizes some ingredients that you hopefully have in your pantry and maybe some in your refrigerator already. We're going to be making a risotto and it's got some cream of mushroom soup, chicken stock, short grain rice, peas, onion, salt and pepper, and then if you're so inclined you can put some chicken into there. To start with, we are going to turn on our stove to medium-high heat. We're going to add about a tablespoon of oil to our skillet here. And to that we will add one small onion that's been diced, small dice. Just scrape the rest of the onion out of there. And the reason we're cooking the onion first is we want to add some flavor to the oil. The oil is going to draw out all those nice strong flavors from the onion, going to give the risotto a very deep and rounded flavor. So as that is sauteing, we are just getting that onion cooked thoroughly here. And while that's going, we want to take our rice and we will add that in as well. The reason we're adding the rice is we're toasting the rice a little bit. That's going to give it a little bit of a caramelized flavor and again add to the depth of what you're tasting in the risotto. Just because it's a simple recipe doesn't mean we don't want to use some advanced techniques to make things just that much more tasty and enjoyable for you. So as that is cooking, we are going to move on to our next step here in our stock pan. We will turn the heat on high. And we will add our chicken stock. That's 1 3/4 cups. And we will add 1 can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup. And we want to combine these fully in the stock pan and bring it up to a boil because the next step is going to be adding slowly the chicken stock and mushroom soup to the rice to form the risotto. And if you can't get all of that out of there, feel free to use a smaller spoon. Mine is just a little too large, but we're making progress here. All right. Now we will need a whisk. It's good to have all of these ingredients and equipment laid out ahead of time so that when you start cooking, you're not going back and forth trying to cut up an onion while you're mixing the cream of mushroom soup or something like that. Everything should be ready to go ahead of time. Chefs call that mise en place. It means everything is ready to go. Everything's in its place. So I'm just going to fully combine this chicken stock and the mushroom soup. It doesn't need to be thick at this point. We're adding it into the rice, and the rice is actually going to start releasing some starch into the liquid, and that's what will thicken the dish. We'll set that off to the side. And now I just want to keep stirring the rice. You're going to notice a theme today, and that is stir the risotto. Constant stirring is necessary so that you don't form clumps and have big balls of uncooked rice and then some rice that's way over soft and overcooked. We want to make sure that everything cooks evenly. And that again is why we've diced our onions small so that it's a similar size. It's going to cook evenly in the pan. And of course, Mother Nature's done her part with the rice. It is all of similar size on its own. So we don't have to worry too much about that. And we're just going to increase the heat on our cream of mushroom soup here now. It is important for this mixture to be at the proper temperature. If it is too cold, your rice is just going to soak and it's not going to properly absorb the liquid. And thusly, it will not properly release the starch to start thickening the risotto. So we want to make sure that we've got nice and hot liquid to add to our nice and hot rice. As you can see here, this is starting to toast a little bit, starting to get a little bit of color on the rice, and that's what we're looking for. It's going to give a nice nutty flavor to the dish. At this point, I just needed to reach back and grab a ladle. And now we can start 1 ladle at a time adding this liquid into the rice. And we want to make sure we're stirring constantly. Remember, the theme today is stir your risotto. Stir, stir, stir. When that liquid is nearly absorbed, you're going to add more and just keep constantly stirring adding more liquid. And at this point, we're going to turn the heat down just a little bit on our risotto pan. And again, one more ladleful, stirring. When you see that it's nearly fully absorbed, you're going to add another ladleful. Stir the risotto. This dish is great for those of you who are bored of eating the same thing and just looking to get a little more adventurous. It also uses ingredients that are fairly familiar to most people, so it's going to be something that's familiar but different. That will be the theme of this risotto today. And again, we're just stirring in more liquid here, starting to get absorbed. We'll stir it in again. Now, risotto is traditionally an Italian dish. It's gotten fairly popular in the US, and I think most people have had it before. If you haven't, the idea here is that we're making a creamy rice stew. That's basically the concept behind it. So as you're making this, just try to remember it's a stew. It's not a soup. You don't want it to be soupy, and you don't want it to be fully cooked rice either. We're looking for a nice stew-like texture here. And then the nice part about this too is we can add in any vegetables that we want at the end to give it some more flavor and some more depth. Today we've chosen frozen green peas because, again, we're just trying to work with what we've got in our pantry and our freezer. Everybody probably has quite a bit of food in their house right now, and maybe you start wondering what to do with it. There are various things that we can use, common everyday ingredients, to make something a little more exotic and a little more fun. And we're just going to keep stirring our risotto. Again, as I said, stir the risotto is the theme of the day. And we're starting to get to the bottom of that liquid here. So once that is all added in, we're just going to let this simmer for about 5-10 minutes until it's all absorbed fully. And then we'll be ready to add our green peas. We're also going to be cooking some chicken today to go on top of the risotto, so there's a little added protein. Chicken isn't necessary for this recipe, it's just nice to have. And I'm still just stirring the risotto here. It's starting to thicken up, the rice grains are releasing some starch, and you can see that's getting really creamy in there now. The cream of mushroom soup helps with that process. If you wanted to, you could extend this cooking process and just use the chicken stock as well. It takes a little longer, and it doesn't have those nice little bits of mushroom and cream in there, but it'll still do the same thing if you let it cook long enough, low enough, and slow enough. Today we're on kind of a time limit. We're trying to make sure that this is something that you can get done quickly, so we're not going to focus on that recipe as much as the one we have here in front of us. And again, we're getting to the very end of this cream of mushroom liquid. So at this point, I will take the pan and just add the rest in and continue to stir the risotto. You cannot stir this enough. Right arm gets tired, you can switch over to the left. Just make sure that you're still constantly in there stirring. As you can see, it's starting to absorb quite a bit of that liquid. It looks nice and creamy. Right now we're at a soup stage. Like I said before, we want to be more like a stew. So we're just going to keep stirring and stirring. Keep stirring that in. Now keep in mind, we can use other types of soup as well. You could use a tomato soup. You'd have a nice tomato risotto. That one would be great. Instead of chicken, you could add some canned tuna on top. That's another variation. What we like to think of with these recipes is they are bases for your creativity. Let your imagination run wild a little bit. We all have plenty of free time right now, I think, and that could be used thinking of ways to improve your cooking or make it yours just a little bit more. So again, these are just basic techniques that we're trying to show you what you could do with things that you have on hand. As you can see, this is boiling away at this point. It's starting to get really thick here. And that rice is going to have a little bit of bite to it still. It's not going to be totally soft like you would have a steamed rice dish. And you do want that little bit of firmness in the rice. That actually gives the texture that risotto is known for, that just a little bit of firmness in the rice still. It's okay to eat it. It's not going to hurt you to have a little bit of raw rice. Mostly though, what you're looking to do is release the starch from the outside of the rice grains. Once that starch is released, that'll thicken the dish. It makes it creamy, gives it that nice flavor. And that's really what the cooking of the rice is about, is releasing those starches from the grains into the liquid that you're cooking it in. So at this point, we're going to turn the heat down to a simmer. And we are going to let this just simmer along for about another 10 minutes here. And now we will cook our chicken. At this point, we have our chicken here, and we're just going to season this with salt and pepper, nice and basic. I like to get a liberal amount of salt on there. Again, the inside of the chicken it's not possible to season that. So the more we can get on there on the outside, the better it's going to taste. We'll add just a tablespoon of oil to our saute pan here. And you just want to swirl that oil around. Make sure that it's covered the entire surface of the pan so that your chicken doesn't stick. And then we want to go seasoned side down into the pan. And at this point, we can season the other side of the chicken too. Now what we're looking for here is to get a nice brown on the outside of the chicken. Again, anytime you're getting a brown color on food that you cook, that's called the Maillard reaction. And what that is the process of starches or proteins caramelizing, and that gives it a nice sweet depth of flavor that you're not going to get if you were just to boil your chicken, or if you weren't sauteing your rice with the onions. You're going to find that the flavors fall a little flat. Anytime you're eating at a restaurant, these techniques are what makes the food taste that much better and makes it taste like a chef has prepared it rather than just someone that doesn't have that culinary knowledge. So keep that in mind. Caramelization, Maillard reaction, those are things that chefs talk about frequently, and those are the things that make food taste really good instead of just good. Good ingredients help too, but you really want to be working on those techniques. And again, while that chicken's cooking, I'm just going to take this opportunity to stir the risotto. Constant stirring here. Keep it moving. We don't have any clumps, so we're good. We're just trying to make sure it finishes cooking in a reasonable amount of time and evenly. And you can hear the chicken sizzling away there. I'm just going to check this bottom side. We don't quite have that brown color that we're looking for yet. Once the chicken peels away from the pan easily, then you'll know it's time to flip. If it's stuck a little bit and it doesn't want to budge, give it some time, let it do its thing. It'll naturally pull away from the pan when it's ready to be flipped over. So don't worry too much if it's stuck to the bottom. It'll eventually release, and you'll keep all those nice caramelized flavors on the chicken instead of in your pan. So that's the key here, is we want to make sure all that browning that we've done stays with the chicken. Just give this risotto another stir here. And at this point, we're going to add in some frozen peas. We'll give that another stir. And once the peas are incorporated, go ahead and give it a taste. See if it's seasoned to your liking. I like to have a little more salt and pepper in there. And notice how I'm just doing a pinch and I'm seasoning from up high. That gives good distribution throughout your pan to your seasonings. And we'll just give that another stir here. And at this point, the risotto can be turned down to just a low heat. We're just looking to keep it warm now while we finish our chicken. Time to flip the chicken. Notice the nice golden brown color that we've got here. And if that starts to smoke a little bit, that's okay. That just lets you know that the oil is hot We're using an oil that can retain a very high heat, and that's safflower oil. Oils are ranked in order of their smoking point. So olive oil, think of that as the bottom of the list. Olive oil's smoking point is very low. So when a pan is hot and olive oil starts to smoke, you're creating carcinogens there with that smoke. Safflower oil is at the top, near peanut oil, as far as how much heat it can tolerate before it starts to smoke. So we want to make sure when we're doing high heat cooking, sauteing, searing, that we're using safflower oil instead of something like olive oil. Think of olive oil as what you would use to finish the dish. If you needed just a little more depth of flavor, some more fat in there, olive oil would be great in the risotto. We don't want to saute the chicken in olive oil because of that smoke point. All right, now that we've got some color on the outside of the chicken, we're actually going to slice it up and finish it in the pan here. And we just want to cut this. Now I know it isn't done inside. That's okay. We just wanted to make sure we get that color on the outside of the pan. As long as we wash our cutting board and our knife and do not reuse them after we've done this with the chicken, we're not at risk of getting sick from this raw poultry here. So at this point, we're just going to add these back into the pan one slice at a time, just to let those finish cooking. This will cook the chicken very quickly for you. We're looking at about maybe 1 or 2 minutes is all we need to do on this sliced chicken, versus another 20 minutes of whole chicken breast in there. So if time is not on your side, feel free to make adjustments like I have here and just cut the chicken down. And we'll be eating here in just about 5 minutes is all we've got left. Come back over and we will turn the chicken in the pan so that it can finish on the other side. Notice this nice golden brown color that's happening all over the chicken at this point. Got that Maillard reaction that I referred to happening. And we can move this over into the side here just to let it finish while we lay the rest of it flat for the second chicken breast. And while that finishes out, we will clear the cutting board away so we're not exposing any germs. Just give the counter a nice wipe with that towel. And we can come back to our risotto, which is now nice and soft. All those flavors have been absorbed. We'll take our nice bowl here and just create a beautiful plate. We're going to garnish with some chives. We'll let the chicken finish out here in the pan. And at this point we can turn that down. And we're just going to layer the chicken right on top of our risotto here. We'll give the plate a little wipe. Finish with some chives. And there we have it, guys. Pantry risotto with seared chicken breast. For this recipe and more, visit harmonsgrocery.com. And we look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about our recipes. Have a lot of fun and be safe.